The nicest people in our business that you'd ever want to meet. Aaron, want to go to Q&A, or do you want me to ask these guys? Okay. First of all three of you were first-round draft picks. I don't think anybody.
Big stuff.
How much pressure? To me, there's probably a good and a bad with it. The good is they're going to give you a much longer look before they give up on you. The bad is there's so much expected out of you. So tell me about your early years of being a first-round pick and how hard that was.
Well, I got found out the business of the game because even if I was a first-round pick, I got traded. And after I got traded, I had 2 elbow surgeries. So I had to keep realizing, yeah, you were someone's number one. I had to reprove myself again and again. I got 12 different jerseys in 20 years, so a first rounder didn't really matter. When people say first round, I didn't want to be a first round bust. And I didn't want to say I was they saw potential in me to be what I thought I could be. And so my work ethic just always had to be, I did what got me there, so I just took pride in that. I was somebody's first, but I didn't want to be someone's, considered a bust, and I experienced greater success in the latter part of my career because, like I said, I got plenty of prosthetics. I was making a joke before. I saw these guys, I go, my kid's going to still see me, hear Dad give out some advice because if they shake my receptacle jar and they're going to hear all the clanging from all the pins and needles and stuff, the screws they got, in there. But no, it's, I don't know. What do you got? On first round, being a first round, I didn't want anybody to know that. They get all this money and you have all these expectations. I think my funniest story about being a first round pick was with the Giants. And we had to scrimmage the big league team. The minor leaguers had to do the big league squad, and I had to face Barry Bonds. So all the guys, I'm sitting around, we're all stretching, and they're like, oh, you got to face Bonds. Really, he's going to hit a 600-foot bomb off you. If he does, I'm going to watch it too, it's Barry Bonds, right? I said, well, listen, because everybody's all about the money. You're the golden boy, you got all this money. I said, listen, if you hit one, I'll take you all out for dinner. I'm sick of hearing about what money I got. Let's go out and hang out. That was, knows I love hanging out with the guys. Let's go out. But I said, if I strike him out, I said, you all take me out. So we had a battle. I gave up a couple of hits, walks. I wasn't getting the strikes that I thought I should be getting, of course. But the only people in the building was the front office, and here comes Barry Bonds. And I'm like, I'm 185 pounds soaking wet. Well, I'm facing guys that were steroid junkies and all that notes in the game. And here comes Barry Bonds, and I'm like, holy shit. Here's Barry. It's backyard stuff. It's really happening, And long and short of it, I struck him out swinging, and I kept walking him out. I was ready to throw up. I couldn't wait to call my dad. And I struck him out swinging. I said, if I'm going to get him, I got to get him out swinging. So I threw him a circle changeup. He fouled a couple stuff, but it was cool. But the team didn't want taking me out. They didn't celebrate that. But I did. I called my dad on a payphone, so that was a cool moment.
Neil and Clint alluded to it earlier. I mean, you lived the dream that any of us that played high school baseball or you got to play for the Pirates, which at a time that probably was a bit of a burden, but you always handled that very well.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I think, to Jason's point, I actually feel kind of fortunate that in this small fraternity of baseball, being a first-round pick, before social media, before, there was lights on you that you feel constantly when you watch kids these days and things like that. You kind of feel for them, especially in the sports world, that they don't feel like they're meeting expectations or so on and so forth. But more than that, I've always kind of felt like I was just dumb enough to not think all the time about being a first-round pick in Pittsburgh and being in the organization. I partially kid, but my mindset was very much day-to-day. I was lucky enough to have a brother that was playing pro ball at the time. My sister was just getting married to Don Kelly, and he was in the minor league. So I spent a lot of time, even before I got to pro ball, in the Erie Seawolves clubhouse and in Toledo and some of these places on the weekends. And so I got a decent perspective on from a small scale of how things operated. So when I was fortunate enough to get drafted in 2004 by Pittsburgh, I knew, but I didn't know what was in store for me as far as you're gonna, especially as a high school guy, you're gonna hit every single level. You're gonna have to compete and do well. And at least my experience, you don't when you're in pro ball, especially as a higher round draft pick, you don't necessarily feel like your career starts until maybe you get to AA or AAA, because there's a lot of hand holding going on. There's a lot of, patting on the butt, and then all of a sudden, reality kicks you in the mouth per se. I remember being in AAA as a 21-year-old, just strutting around saying, maybe the next call is going to be the call of the big leagues, and I'll be there for the next 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it may be. And I turned around and was still in AAA 2.5 years later, and had to figure it out. And I can remember the lowest point of my career was playing with Andrew McCutchen. We were in AAA. We were both playing pretty well. June rolls around. Almost 2 or 3 days apart, I blow out my knee and dislocate my finger, and I'm heading on a plane down to Florida to rehab for the next 2.5 months. And Andrew McCutchen gets called up, and I played with Andrew all the way from AA, a couple years in AAA, and so that was a blessing and a curse in my career, because it helped me self-reflect. It helped me slow down, because to that point I had really any injuries. There was a lot of hand-holding going on, and then you get to the big leagues, and the state of the Pirates at that point was not very good. But I remember thinking to myself, I really want to be a part of something special here. And Andrew and I had many conversations of that, of how can we get everybody pulling in the same direction? How can we maximize the group that we have here? And guys like Jason and Clint, when they came along, it was at the most influential time for a lot of us that were on the roster. But these guys and Clint, he turned that engine when he came, and we moved things in the right direction. And we were very, very fortunate to have him and have some quality guys like Jason and Russell Martin and AJ Burnett. That we had a young core at the time, and we were able to kind of jump on those coattails, learn a lot on the day-to-day, and have some success. And man, those 13, 14, 15 seasons were pretty spectacular.
Clinton, you not only were first round pick, but then Sports Illustrated cover boy, the next phenom. Did you enjoy all that attention early in your career, or did it put pressure on you?
I enjoyed absolutely none of it. I grew up in a small town, and I was a really good player in a small town. I was a really good player in a small conference. And in my sophomore year, a lot of scouts were there scouting a catcher named Waldo Williams. And after the game, I realized I might have a shot, because normally all the scouts went with Waldo and his dad. Waldo and his dad went, and some of them went. There were 4 or 5 others on the side. And when I started walking out, they said, "Clint, is your dad here? We'd like to talk to your dad." I'm like, "Well, yeah, my dad's here. He doesn't play. I'm the one that played." But then I realized I might have a shot. But things went quickly. I played well. And Neil said it best. I was dumb enough, I just played. I didn't try to figure anything out. I had a lot of success early. I got to the big leagues quickly. And that's when things got hard. The Sports Illustrated cover at 20 years old. And the backstory of that is, I knew they had come in to take shots with Willie Wilson and I and a bunch of other hot shot rookies in the Florida State League. They don't tell you you're going to be on the cover. They don't tell anybody. And I'm going into the spring training that day to my 7-Eleven that I stop at every day to get my quart of milk and my honey bun. Breakfast of champions. This is the nutrition that we were accustomed to back then. And I grabbed my milk, I grabbed my honey bun, I put it on the counter. And back, for those of you of my age can remember 7-Eleven, there wasn't a magazine rack. There were 3 magazines on the counter: Newsweek, Time, and Sports Illustrated. So I put the things up. There's a kid my age at the cash register. Looks at me, "Hey, how you doing?" "Yeah, same thing." "Okay, good." He goes, "Hey, wait a minute." And he looked over to the side, and he looked at me, and he looked over to the side again. I go, "What are you looking at?" He goes, "You need to look at this." And I looked over there, and there's my picture on the cover of Sports Illustrated. It's the first time I've seen it. My mouth went dry. I walked out of the 7-Eleven, no honey bun, no quart of milk. And I go to the ballpark. At first, I didn't know it, but everything changed at that moment, because a bunch of the people in the clubhouse, players, they looked at me different. There's guys played 10, 12 years. Never been on the cover of a magazine. Not that they hated me, but it's just like, what's he doing on there? He hasn't done anything. So there was a lot of, maybe I took it upon myself to find a way to make everybody earn it. I'll show them, I write about in the book. I was all caught up in proving other people wrong. rather than just proving myself right. So, Carl, how many copies we got of that magazine at home?
None.
One. In the room where I work out, because Carla wouldn't let me have it anywhere else in the house. But there's just one as a memory because it's part of me. I still get 5 to 6 a month, to sign and send back. But it's not like I look at that today, I go, oh yeah, woo. No, it's like, okay. I wish I could have told that kid what was about to happen and help him on his journey. And basically that's kind of what I'm trying to do now.
For Jason and Neil, you both have kids, and I don't know if you had the same thing that when my kids were little, I started saying things to them that my parents had said to me, and it was like, I can't believe it, I'm turning into my dad. And I'm wondering, when you read the book, and like when I could hear Clint in his office saying a lot of the stuff that I'm reading in the book when we'd be at the press conferences, do you guys find yourself in your baseball lives or in your personal lives repeating stuff that he said? And if not, just if you could talk a little bit about what it was like to play for him.
Yeah, 1,000%. It's funny. You feel. My father passed away 2 years ago, and obviously knew these guys and their fathers, and he preached a lot of leadership stuff. And Clint, obviously, when he came in, and the things that he preached to us, and getting out of our own way, and just focusing on being a good teammate, and showing up, and not worrying about yesterday or tomorrow. So valuable, and you find yourself when you're having conversations. My kids are young; they're 9 and 6. Jason's are obviously older, but I find myself regurgitating to a certain degree a lot of things that I'm saying. I thought it'll go in my head like, well, I remember Clint telling me that. I remember my dad telling me that. The one thing along the same lines as Shower Well, my dad would always preach to me is, hey, the sun's going to come up tomorrow, and you're like. It might be cloudy tomorrow, it might be a tornado, and you're like, there was never anything, you knew that it meant more than that. And a lot of things that Clint preached and really drove into us from day one. When he showed up in spring training, the attention to detail was not something that was there. Having been in the organization from 2004 to when he came, it was not there. And I can remember either the first or second spring training, he's rolling out the schedule of events for that first week of spring training, which is the most cushy days that you could ever imagine outside of having some live at-bats and the guys throwing. It was not cushy. It was, we are going to try to change some things here, and if you guys are either on board or you're not, and if you don't want to be on board, well, we got some other guys that are willing to be on board. And we knew that we had to play good baseball. We knew we had to field it. We knew we had to hit it. We knew we had to pitch it. And we had the group there, especially going into, like he said, and I totally agree with what Clint said, that end of the 12th season hurt a lot because we were playing such great baseball going into the post-All-Star break, and things just didn't go our way. Turn around to the spring training in 2013. I remember being in one of our first meetings, and Clint didn't have to say very much, and we knew that we weren't going to harp on how poorly things had gone the end of the 2012. We were like, whoa, we have some guys here. We have some guys that are growing. We have Starling Marte. We have Kutch in his prime playing basically MVP caliber baseball for several years in a row. But I know I got a little bit off topic, but there's so many things on the day-to-day that you're working with people, you're working with kids. I work with baseball kids. I'm coaching a third grade girls basketball team in a couple weeks starting. What do you say to third grade girls basketball? But there's a lot of
Don't
things.
tell him to shower well.
We're gonna stay away from that one. But so valuable and things that I find myself having conversations with Donnie, and I find myself saying, hey, have you ever considered, we did some really cool things in spring training. For instance, we would have a situational hitting round during that first week of spring training, and as veteran players and offensive veteran players, you're like, this is eyewash, and it wasn't eyewash. It was he was trying to get us to focus during a time and make it as game-like as we can. And so what he did was he said, all right, first day of spring training, everybody, I know you just got your meal money for the day, everybody throw in $100. And now remember, there's 70 plus guys there for spring training. and there's, 35, 40 pitchers, so you got a lot of other guys. And you would have thought that somebody rolled out, steak and eggs for breakfast, especially the minor league guys, right? Because they're going, okay, tell us what we got to do. And there would be a field that had, you got to get a bunt down, you got to get a sack bunt, squeeze both sides, hit and run, infield in with less than 2 outs, man on third. And I'd never seen guys take it so seriously, but with a purpose. Number one, because there was money on the line, but also because there was a point to it, and it was letting us know that this is important now. But if we get to where we're going, there's gonna be times where Pedro Alvarez may need to throw a bunt down in the playoffs or something along those lines. And so I always find myself going back to a lot of things that think about Clint, but a lot of things that he says when I'm talking to even the manager of the Pirates now.
Yeah, I think what I remember most, circles back to just being obsessed with baseball. We have baseball fathers that also played in the big leagues, and Clint's, your relationship with your dad ties in with love and respect that we were taught. But the one saying, I think it's number 5, I always wanted to be great. As a first rounder, I thought I had to be great. I wanted to be great. Somebody gave me the number 1 opportunity, I wanted to be great. I'll bring in the conversation you wanted me to talk about. Because I was drafted as a starter, and I wound up doing everything from middle relief to setting up to sweeping the floors if I stopped to being the closer here. And when I got traded from Detroit, where I got booed out of Detroit, that's a tough situation to be in. Tough crowd out there in Detroit. And I went to the World Series with them in 06, and I did a great job in 06. 07, I did it okay as well. Being a middle reliever, it's a kind of a thankless role, but I prided myself on inherited runners. Going from a starter where you do a routine, I was very routine, it was what I was conditioned to do, and then a guy named Justin Verlander came into the play. He was a first-round pick, so first rounder pushing out people. They give a big money guy. It was my turn. I was like, Jimmy, I'm a big league pitcher. I don't want to go back